The legend of Isaac Kappy. I first met Isaac in acting school. He was the guy who'd stay up all night talking about the films of Cassavetes and Henry Jaglom, who could quote entire passages from Taxi Driver, or riff on Godard and Truffaut and the French New Wave for hours. To Isaac, Tarkovsky was a metaphysical mentor. You get the idea. We were both chasing the Hollywood dream, or the nightmare depending on your POV. But Isaac always seemed to be chasing something else, something more. I watched his career move along in fits and starts. He landed roles in Thor and Terminator Salvation. Not starring parts, but solid work. Roles that could lead to bigger things if you stayed patient, stayed focused. That was always Isaac's struggle, the patience. His mind moved too fast, took too many leaps. We used to joke that he lived in a constant state of pre-production for his masterpiece. He had this screenplay he was working on, this ambitious indie film that was going to blend Scorsese's paranoid energy with Terrence Malick's spiritual questioning. He'd corner me at parties, pitch me the latest revision, his eyes bright with conviction. "You're going to play the lead, Jeremy," he'd say. "You and Lizzie both." Lizzie was my girlfriend by then. She and Isaac had dated briefly years before, but that was ancient history, or so we thought. The change in him happened slowly at first, then all at once. By the summer of 2018, his social media was peppered with strange posts. Allegations about Hollywood that got darker and more elaborate with each telling. At first, I thought it was research for his script. Method writing, maybe. Isaac had always been intense about his process.
He said the end goal was to get everybody's ship, to control the whole society.
Party in the garden, the town was falling, love in the summertime.
I remember the last time I saw him. Really saw the Isaac I knew. It was at Cafe Gratitude in Venice Beach. The place was full of its usual crowd. Screenwriters with their laptops, producers doing deals over overpriced avocado toast. I'd chosen it hoping the peaceful vibe might help ground him. Instead, he sat there vibrating with nervous energy, his leg bouncing under the table, his fingers drumming against an untouched smoothie. "What's happened to you, man?" I asked. "You're not returning anyone's calls. Your posts are concerning. Are you still seeing Dr. Klein?" His eyes darted around the room, checking the exits. "The script, Jeremy. Remember the script? The one about the failed actor who discovers..." He stopped as Lizzie arrived, sliding into the booth beside me. "Isaac." Her voice carried that mix of warmth and worry that seemed to both agitate and calm him. "You were going to play the lead," he continued, words spilling out faster now. "Both of you. Scorsese meets Malick, remember? Taxi Driver meets Tree of Life. But now I see. The story was trying to tell me something else entirely. We're worried you're going to get yourself hurt," Lizzie said softly. "These accusations you're making, these people are powerful. Have you thought about what could happen?" He laughed, a harsh sound that cut through the cafe's ambient music. "What could happen? What's already happening? Everything is happening now, Lizzie, everything. Look, remember that scene I wrote where the protagonist realizes the entire industry is built on illusion and delusion? Yeah, it's just like that." He stopped to scribble something on a napkin. Lizzie squeezed my hand under the table. We watched as our friend disappeared into his own narrative, one where he was no longer the supporting character, but the hero uncovering dark truths, or at least what he believed were truths. The next year was like watching a slow-motion car crash. His followers multiplied as his grip on reality loosened more and more. Former colleagues distanced themselves. Roles dried up. The Isaac we knew, the passionate filmmaker, the guy who could spend hours breaking down the technical brilliance of Goodfellas, faded like an overexposed photograph. When the news came from Arizona, I wasn't surprised, just heartbroken as hell. He was 42. Now I'm standing at his funeral in Albuquerque with Lizzie, watching as mourners drift away from the gravesite. The New Mexico sun casts long shadows across the cemetery grounds. You know what keeps haunting me? Lizzie wraps her arms around herself. How someone so talented could get lost in those thoughts. It's like his creativity turned against him, took him down paths that... She trails off, watching the sun close the aperture of the desert landscape. I nod slowly. The fantasies just kept building, but they weren't all dark. Remember that music video he made? The world is watching? God, yes. Her voice catches. There was that line. I was in the Garden of Earth having a laugh. Then along came a monster who crossed my path. I keep wondering who that monster was for him. Was it Hollywood? Was it something inside him? Or maybe the monster was the fear of being ordinary, I say. The fear of being just another actor in LA with a half-finished screenplay. We stand in silence as the cemetery workers wait respectfully at a distance, ready to shovel dirt once we leave. He could have been extraordinary without all the conspiracy shit, Lizzie whispers. He already was. Some days I find myself thinking about Isaac's unfinished screenplay. In a way, he did end up telling a story about an actor who discovered dark truths, just not the way any of us expected. His legend lives on in the shadowy corners of the internet, where some see him as a troubled soul who lost his way, others as a man who dared to speak out regardless of the consequences. But when I remember Isaac Kappy, I think of that passionate kid from acting school, eyes bright with dreams of making his masterpiece. I think of all our late-night conversations about film, art, truth, and the stories we tell ourselves. In the end, he became trapped in his own narrative, a tragic protagonist in a story he couldn't stop telling, couldn't stop believing. The lights of Hollywood still shine. Maybe not as bright, true, but somewhere in their glow, my friend's story reminds me that sometimes the most compelling dramas are not the ones we see on screen, but the ones that play out in the shadows between fact and fiction, between reality and the roles we choose to play.
Thanks a lot for listening to another story by Beyond Grateful and Fugitive Poets Press, where we enjoy making things for people to read and listen to.